Anna Bjørner is considered to be the founder of the Pentecostal movement in Denmark, alongside her husband Sigurd Bjørner. There were also other Pentecostal people in Denmark before Anna and Sigurd Bjørner started to preach in the 1910s, but still Anna Bjørner is considered to be the founder of the Pentecostal movement in Denmark. Anna Bjørner is, of course, primarily known for preaching the gospel itself and for spreading the Pentecostal message about the Holy Spirit, but another subject that was very important to her was that of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. So in this video we are going to start with a summary of what the lost 10 tribes of Israel is, and then we're going to give a biography of Anna Bjørner, and then we will finish off with what Anna Bjørner said and wrote about the lost 10 tribes of Israel. The lost 10 tribes of Israel. The history of the lost 10 tribes of Israel is basically that originally the nation of Israel consisted of 12 tribes. These 12 tribes of Israel lived in Egypt and were led by Moses in the Exodus out of Egypt and conquered the land of Canaan. And there they lived at first in a confederacy. Then under King Saul they united into one kingdom, all the 12 tribes. And then Saul was followed by David, who was followed by his son Solomon. And King Solomon, he started his reign by following the God of Israel with all his heart and with all his soul. But in his old age, he started to erect pagan temples to pagan gods and goddesses to please his numerous wives and concubines. Therefore, the God of Israel decided that he would punish Solomon by letting 10 of the tribes of Israel secede from Solomon's royal house in Jerusalem, but that it would only happen in the reign of Solomon's son. And this actually did occur approximately 931 BC under King Rehoboam, Solomon's son, where the 10 tribes of Israel, that was the northern 10 tribes of Israel, they seceded from King Rehoboam's house in Jerusalem. The new king of the 10 tribes of Israel, that is the northern kingdom of Israel, King Jeroboam, he decided that the 10 tribes of Israel should only worship pagan gods and not the God of Israel, so that they would not return to the royal house of David in Jerusalem, which still followed the God of Israel. And the 10 tribes of Israel, they continued to worship pagan gods and goddesses, and this eventually made the God of Israel so angry that he decided that he would remove the 10 tribes of Israel out of the land of Israel, which he had given to their fathers. That took place approximately 745 to 721 BC, where the Assyrian Empire invaded the kingdom of the 10 tribes of Israel and deported the vast majority of the 10 tribes to northern areas of the Assyrian Empire, where they settled them. And we read about this in the book of 2 Kings in the Old Testament. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Hala and in Habor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Unquote from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 17, verses 6 and 18. Mainstream historians do not know for sure what happened to the 10 tribes of Israel after that. The remaining 2 tribes in the kingdom of Judah since became known as Jews, that is, Judah Jews. And since then, Jews have tried to find the 10 tribes of Israel. For example, the Chabad Lubavitch, which is one of the largest Orthodox Jewish organizations, they write on their website. Regardless of the current whereabouts of the 10 tribes, whether they are hidden in some remote, impenetrable place, or whether they have been swallowed up with the other nations, God has decreed that they will ultimately return in the time of the final redemption. A quote from Isaiah: "It shall come to pass on that day that a great shofar shall be sounded, and those lost in the land of Assyria and those exiled in the land of Egypt shall come, and they shall prostrate themselves before the Lord on the holy mount in Jerusalem." unquote. From Yehuda Shurpin, Where Are the Lost 10 Tribes of Israel? The Saga of the 10 Lost Tribes of Israel, Part 3, on Chabad Lubavitch's website. But we are, like many other people, convinced that the lost 10 tribes of Israel migrated to Europe and that they today make up the core of the nations of northwestern Europe and of course their descendants across the world. For example, the Israelite tribe of Dan came to make up the core of the people of Denmark, which is my country. So we are certainly not saying that the peoples of northwestern Europe are entirely of Israelite ancestry, but we are saying that the Israelite elements in them are so numerous that they fulfill the prophecies of the Bible about Israel and also of the individual tribes of Israel. Anna Bjørner, who was born Anna Hallberg, was of Danish, Norwegian and Italian-Swiss ancestry. She began her acting career approximately 1891, and at this tender age she was for a short while engaged to the satirist author Gustav Wied, who wrote the Danish classic novel Livsens ondskab, which means the evil of life, in 1914. But their engagement was terminated when Gustav Wied tried to seduce her. Then in 1895, Anna got married to the author Otto Larsen, and they got a boy together. But Otto Larsen, he was a drunkard and he was violent, so the couple therefore divorced in 1899 and the boy was adopted by an acquaintance. At this stage, Anna Larsen, as her name was now, she was one of Denmark's leading actresses and was instructed by Herman Bang, who was an overt homosexual author who is known for his Danish classic novels Håbløse Slægter, which means Hopeless Families, from 1880, and Tine from 1889. Anna Bjørner was the major star of the Dagmar Theatre in Copenhagen, but in 1909 she converted to Christ. The rest of the theatre world did not understand why, and at the prime of her career she simply gave up the theatre and her career and got married to the YMCA secretary in Elsinore, Sigurd Bjørner. But there had been smaller Pentecostal meetings and congregations in Denmark since 1912, but Anna and Sigurd Bjørner, they were in effect the ones who started the Pentecostal awakening in Denmark. The Bjørner couple did missions in Denmark in the Gospel Trailer, which was a sort of a camper trailer of those days. Sigurd Bjørner, he became the leader of Evangelieforsamlingen, which means the Gospel Assembly, in the affluent Østerbro district of Copenhagen. And in 1924, the Bjørner couple founded the Apostolic Church in Denmark, which was a branch of the Apostolic Church in Britain, and they planted congregations all over Denmark. Their magazine, Evangeliebladet, which means the Gospel magazine, was sold door to door in large numbers, and it had an easy to understand but straightforward and no compromise gospel. And the power of their crusade was great, and it was warmly welcomed both by many unsaved people and also by Christians. But the meetings which the Bjørner couple held, they were also sometimes attacked by the young socialists. As early as 1923, you could read articles in Evangeliebladet about the fig tree is blooming and that the Jews would soon establish a Jewish state in Palestine. These articles were especially inspired by the British-Irish Bible teacher Henry Grattan Guinness, who in his book Light for the Last Days, written in 1886, had written that Britain would free Jerusalem in 1917, which also did take place when General Allenby conquered Jerusalem out of the hand of the Muslim Turks on December 9 to 11, 1917. One of the main subjects in Evangeliebladet was that of the lost 10 tribes of Israel, which were identified as the Anglo-Saxons and related peoples, including the Danes, of course. Several times the main article in Evangeliebladet was on the subject of the lost 10 tribes of Israel, and they were primarily written by Anna Bjørner herself. There were also articles by prominent British Israelites of those days, including William Pascoe Gord, Edward Odlum, J. Llewellyn Thomas, Stephen Jeffries, and Henry Grattan Guinness. There were several articles which were directly translated from the National Message, which was the official magazine of the British Israel World Federation. The only foreign magazine which Evangeliebladet advertised to be sold at the meetings of the Apostolic Church was also the National Message, the official magazine of the British Israel World Federation. There were in total approximately 10 to 15 articles translated from the National Message, which by far was the largest number of articles translated from any foreign magazine. And there was also an article by the Norwegian Israelite author Albert Hjort, and many articles by the Swedish Israelite Pentecostal pastor Nils Ramselius. For reasons which I do not know of, Anna and Sigurd Bjørner left the Apostolic Church and Evangeliebladet in April 1936. So from the one week to the following week, even the slightest reference of the existence of the Bjørner couple vanished. At the same time, all mentioning of the lost 10 tribes of Israel vanished from Evangeliebladet, but only for 2 years. But then suddenly, when they wrote about Israel and Jews, then it was the diametrically opposite point of view. So now the new leadership of the Apostolic Church, they claimed that the Jews were all 12 tribes of Israel. But nonetheless, the Bjørner couple, they continued undaunted on their own. For example, in 1944, Sigurd Bjørner mentioned the tribes of Israel in a booklet defending Pentecostalism, and in 1947 and 1949, Anna Bjørner was translator for the evangelistic meetings which the British Israel Pentecostal preacher George Jeffreys held in Copenhagen and Slagelse. The Bjørner couple, they were very thrilled when they in 1952 got together with the Apostolic Church, the church which they themselves had founded and led. But after 1 year of illness, Sigurd Bjørner unfortunately died in 1953. So Anna Bjørner, who was now a widow, she was expressly forbidden by the new leadership of the Apostolic Church not to mention anything about the tribes of Israel or about the return of the Jews to Palestine when she was speaking at the meetings in the Apostolic Church. Anna Bjørner said that she felt that, quote, they had stabbed her in the back when she spoke of those things, unquote, that is, the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And that is according to the biography Ægteparret Bjørners Liv og Virke by Johannes Rasmussen, page 32. It was published in 1969. And according to Johannes Rasmussen's biography of Anna and Sigurd Bjørner, the reason why the new leadership of the Apostolic Church prohibited Anna Bjørner from talking about the tribes of Israel, it was because they believed that women should not preach to the congregation or the assembly. But even in her final years, Anna Bjørner persevered on her own and, for example, spoke at Hotel Prinsen in Roskilde in September 1953 on the subject of the tribes of Israel. Anna Bjørner passed away in 1955, 2 years after her husband. So here are some quotes by Anna Bjørner on the lost 10 tribes of Israel. The first one, that's from Evangeliebladet from 1935, August 7, entitled Caiaphas' Strange Prophecy. Caiaphas' mærkelige profeti. We quote, there are so many Christians who cannot see that Jesus is the Redeemer of Israel. In John chapter 11, we read that the high priests and the Pharisees have summoned a meeting to discuss what they should do about Jesus, who does so many signs among the people, and if it continues like this, they say, the Romans will come and take away both the land and the people. But Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, said, ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not. And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation, that is, the Jews in Palestine, and not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad, that is, the 10 tribes of Israel. Christendom believes that these are the Christians who are spoken of here, but it is obvious that it is not possible. There were no scattered Christians at that time. It was Israel that Jesus came to, and the high priest says, It is better that one man dies for the whole people, but not the whole people should perish. It is a prophecy. He knows not himself what he says, but he proclaims that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, should redeem not only Judah, but also the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the 10 tribes which were in the dispersion. It was the children of God who were to be gathered as one nation with Judah. But Judah did not receive him, only a small band of men from Galilee of the tribe of Benjamin." Unquote. And then we have another quote that's from another article in Evangeliebladet, which is also from the front page. The first quote that was also from the front page. And this one that's from April 21, 1927. The article is entitled Den store pyramide, the Great Pyramid. We quote from Anna Bjørner again, quote, "The 10 tribes of Israel, however, did not return from their captivity in Assyria, but migrated north across the Caucasus around the Black Sea until they landed in Central Europe and finally came to the place which God had given them as a refuge, the Isles in the Sea, that is, the British Isles, from where Ephraim, Israel at last shall come, whereas Judah shall come from the 4 corners of the world. The searchers of history tell us that Hebrew memorials, grave tombs, and other things left behind marks the way which they had wandered. The gospel of Jesus, which had been rejected by Judah, was there proclaimed for the Gentiles, and among them were the 10 tribes of Israel as the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Here the gospel was received, and today these lost 10 tribes make up the core of the Christian nations of the globe." Unquote from Anna Bjørner's article, The Great Pyramid, from 1927. Sigurd Bjørner on the lost 10 tribes of Israel. Sigurd Bjørner, he was the editor of Evangeliebladet, where there were plenty of articles about the lost 10 tribes of Israel. But in 1944, Sigurd Bjørner also wrote about it in his own name, where he wrote an apology for Pentecostalism entitled The Pentecostal Awakening, a Sect, where he wrote that Israel's identity would one day be revealed. We quote from Sigurd Bjørner, quote, "And she shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Thus said the angel to Joseph in a dream before Jesus was born, and those words were already fulfilled when Jesus walked on earth. All who believed in him got the peace and joy of the redemption of sins into their lives. But we must not forget that the words of the angel about him also have another side to them, and that is that the nation of Israel, comprised of 12 tribes, one day shall stand forth as God's people, saved by him from the bondage of sin unto the glorious freedom of a child of God." Unquote from Sigurd Bjørner's booklet, Pinsevækkelsen, en sekt, The Pentecostal Awakening, a Sect, page 8, from 1944. We therefore see that the subject of the lost 10 tribes of Israel was a really important subject for Anna Bjørner and Sigurd Bjørner. It wasn't just a small thing for them. It wasn't just a footnote for them. And by the way, the background illustration which we have used in this video, that's this picture. It's of Evangelieforsamlingen, that is the Gospel Assembly, which was the main church of Anna and Sigurd Bjørner's Apostolic Church in Denmark when they led it. It used to be in Østerbro in Copenhagen, but this particular building, it does not exist any longer.